If she starts doing this with her hands, there's a strong chance she's already chosen you. Miss the moment, and you might miss your chance. There's a powerful quote that says, "Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all." Helen Keller. And when it comes to attraction, that line hits harder than most people realize, because many men don't lose a woman to another man. More often, they lose her to their own hesitation. Here's the reality. A woman rarely walks up and openly says, "I've chosen you, kiss me before I change my mind." Real life doesn't work like that. Instead, the signal usually appears in something quieter and much more honest. Her hands. Most men focus on her face. They analyze her smile. They search her eyes, hoping to find a clear answer. Meanwhile, the real message is happening lower, in a place she's not consciously controlling. Because a face can perform, a voice can pretend, but hands often reveal the truth. They show comfort, attraction, curiosity, and sometimes they reveal the exact moment she's thinking. If he doesn't make a move now, I'm going to lose interest. This is exactly where many men miss the opportunity. They stand there trying to be 100% certain while she's already communicating through body language that doesn't need words. The difficult part is this. Women usually won't keep repeating the same signal forever. Attraction has momentum. When the moment is recognized, it grows. When it's ignored, it slowly fades. If you keep treating a clear green light like it's just politeness, you unintentionally teach her something important, that you're not going to act. And eventually, she'll respond in the way many women do. Not with drama, not with an argument, with distance. She'll stop leaning closer. The warmth fades, and that same energy might later appear with someone who understands what the signals mean. So here's the lesson, from someone who understands how these moments work. Stop waiting for a spoken invitation. Start paying attention to the silent ones. Be present. Notice her hands the same way you'd notice a traffic light. Because hesitation at the wrong moment doesn't make you respectful. Sometimes it simply makes you invisible. If she's showing signs of comfort, closeness, and openness, don't freeze and don't overanalyze. Match the moment, lead the moment, because the difference between "she liked me" and "she slipped away" often comes down to one simple thing: you acted or you didn't. Now let's talk about a signal many men notice but few truly understand. The small hand movement that can change everything. When she lifts her hand and touches her hair, don't immediately assume it's random or meaningless. Pay attention, stay aware of the moment. Because in the world of psychology and attraction, that tiny gesture can sometimes reveal far more than words ever will. Small gestures can carry a lot of meaning, and here's the deeper layer many men overlook. It's not just the act of touching her hair, it's what happens next. She lifts her hand, brushes a strand of hair near her cheek, and instead of stopping there, her fingers slowly move downward along the side of her neck. Sometimes they pause lightly near her collarbone. That slow, lingering motion usually isn't random. It often carries a certain intention, expressed through subconscious behavior. A quick adjustment of hair is simply routine. But when the motion slows down and continues downward, it can become a form of non-verbal communication. That's where understanding female psychology becomes important. The neck, for example, is considered one of the more vulnerable areas of the body. When someone casually exposes it in a relaxed way, it can signal comfort and openness. It may suggest that she feels at ease in your presence. Attraction rarely arrives with a clear announcement. More often it appears through small details, micro movements, timing, softness and pace. When she slows the gesture down, she's also slowing the moment itself, giving you the chance to notice. If you're present and paying attention, you will. If you're distracted, the moment can easily pass by unnoticed. In many ways, attraction develops quietly, in real time, not through dramatic confessions, but through subtle synchronization between two people. Research has explored these patterns as well. For example, behavioral studies observing social interactions have documented repeated signals of attraction in natural environments. One researcher, Dr. Monica Moore of Webster University, spent thousands of hours observing social behavior and recording common nonverbal signals associated with attraction. Among the patterns she documented were gestures like hair touching combined with brief neck exposure. Not because the gesture is rehearsed or meant to look cute, but because it repeatedly appears when someone is feeling a certain level of interest. Psychology tricks aren't magic formulas. They're simply patterns of behavior, and patterns often reveal intention. When her hand rises repeatedly, when the movement becomes softer and lingers longer, and when her posture opens at the same time, she may be unconsciously drawing attention to herself. Without using words, she might be signaling that she feels comfortable in the moment. The key is not to overreact. Don't suddenly jump forward or misread the situation. Stay calm and grounded. Real confidence is quiet. If you notice the gesture once, simply register it. But if it happens several times, especially while she maintains eye contact, leans slightly closer, or smiles between movements, that's when the interaction may be building momentum. Female psychology often moves in waves rather than sudden bursts. She may signal, pause, and observe your response. If you continue talking endlessly about unrelated things while ignoring the change in her energy, she might interpret that as a lack of interest. And in many cases, she'll slowly withdraw. Not dramatically, just subtly. Her posture might close off. Her hands may stop moving. The openness disappears behind crossed arms or a turned shoulder. The moment simply fades. This is where awareness becomes important. Attraction doesn't always appear in obvious ways. Often it looks refined, controlled, and subtle. Sometimes it looks like a woman lightly playing with a strand of her hair while her fingers slowly move downward, just slow enough for you to notice. That can be the window of connection, and stepping into that moment doesn't mean rushing or forcing anything. It simply means adjusting the tone of the interaction, lowering your voice slightly, holding eye contact a little longer, and becoming more present in the moment. Small gestures can carry a lot of meaning, and here's the deeper layer many men overlook. It's not just the act of touching her hair, it's what happens next. She lifts her hand, brushes a strand of hair near her cheek, and instead of stopping there, her fingers slowly move downward along the side of her neck. Sometimes they pause lightly near her collarbone. That slow, lingering motion usually isn't random. It often carries a certain intention, expressed through subconscious behavior. A quick adjustment of hair is simply routine, but when the motion slows down and continues downward, it can become a form of non-verbal communication. That's where understanding female psychology becomes important. The neck, for example, is considered one of the more vulnerable areas of the body. When someone casually exposes it in a relaxed way, it can signal comfort and openness. It may suggest that she feels at ease in your presence. Attraction rarely arrives with a clear announcement. More often, it appears through small details, micro-movements, timing, softness, and pace. When she slows the gesture down, she's also slowing the moment itself, giving you the chance to notice. If you're present and paying attention, you will. If you're distracted, the moment can easily pass by unnoticed. In many ways, attraction develops quietly in real time, not through dramatic confessions, but through subtle synchronization between two people. Research has explored these patterns as well. For example, behavioral studies observing social interactions have documented repeated signals of attraction in natural environments. One researcher, Dr. Monica Moore of Webster University, spent thousands of hours observing social behavior and recording common nonverbal signals associated with attraction. Among the patterns she documented were gestures like hair touching, combined with brief neck exposure. Not because the gesture is rehearsed or meant to look cute, but because it repeatedly appears when someone is feeling a certain level of interest. Psychology tricks aren't magic formulas. They're simply patterns of behavior, and patterns often reveal intention. When her hand rises repeatedly, when the movement becomes softer and lingers longer, and when her posture opens at the same time, she may be unconsciously drawing attention to herself. Without using words, she might be signaling that she feels comfortable in the moment. The key is not to overreact. Don't suddenly jump forward or misread the situation. Stay calm and grounded. Real confidence is quiet. If you notice the gesture once, simply register it. But if it happens several times, especially while she maintains eye contact, leans slightly closer, or smiles between movements, that's when the interaction may be building momentum. Female psychology often moves in waves rather than and stepping into that moment doesn't mean rushing or forcing anything. It simply means adjusting the tone of the interaction, lowering your voice slightly, holding eye contact a little longer, and becoming more present in the moment. The object caress is another signal that's easy to miss. It's subtle, quiet, and almost invisible unless you know what you're looking for. Many men completely overlook it. They sit across the table talking, thinking, analyzing the conversation, while her hands may already be revealing the real story. Imagine a woman slowly running her fingers along the stem of a wine glass, or gently tracing the rim of her coffee cup. Maybe she circles the edge of a menu while you're sitting together. At first glance, it might look like she's distracted or simply passing the time, but often there's more happening beneath the surface. Psychologists sometimes describe this as object displacement. This is when physical energy or attention is directed toward an object, because social boundaries don't yet allow direct contact with the person she's interacting with. In simple terms, the moment might carry a certain level of tension or attraction, but the situation doesn't yet make physical touch appropriate, so her hands naturally interact with the closest object instead. Think about what that means for a second. Her body may be processing the interaction in real time. Some behavioral studies observing social environments have noticed that these kinds of tactile behaviors, touching objects, tracing edges, lightly moving fingers across surfaces, tend to increase when someone is around a person they find attractive. Researchers studying interpersonal behavior have reported noticeable increases in these gestures in those situations. That doesn't mean the object itself is important. Her fingers circling the glass aren't really about the glass. They can reflect nervous energy, curiosity, anticipation, emotions that are looking for somewhere to go. And this is where awareness matters. Many men notice the gesture and assume she's just focused on the drink or absent-mindedly playing with the cup. In reality, the object may simply be a neutral outlet. Social situations often require a certain level of restraint, especially early in an interaction. So instead of immediately reaching across the table or making physical contact, subtle gestures appear instead. An emotionally aware man doesn't panic when he notices this. He doesn't overreact or freeze, and he definitely doesn't sit there analyzing every finger movement like he's studying a complicated chart. He simply observes the overall energy of the moment and stays present. Calm awareness is key. But it's also important not to misread every small movement as attraction. Context always matters. Ask yourself what else is happening at the same time. Is she leaning slightly closer? Is her tone softer or more relaxed? Is she maintaining steady eye contact while her hands move? Attraction rarely shows up through just one isolated gesture. It usually appears through a cluster of signals happening together, when the object touching becomes slow and rhythmic, and it appears alongside eye contact, relaxed posture, and engagement in the conversation. That combination can signal interest rather than boredom. In many ways, it's almost poetic. Her hands may be expressing something her words haven't said yet. It's not about fantasy or over-interpretation. It's simply about recognizing subtle human behavior and understanding the emotional energy that can exist between two people during a moment of connection. And this is where a lot of men get it wrong. They hesitate. They start second-guessing themselves. They wonder if they're just imagining things. They wait for some obvious sign, like a flashing neon signal. But that kind of signal never comes. Attraction almost never shouts. Most of the time, it speaks quietly. A high-value man doesn't need absolute guarantees. He only needs enough indication, and when her hands are communicating that clearly, you already have enough information. But don't jump in suddenly. Don't rush the moment. Stay controlled. If she is transferring her touch onto an object, your response should be to deepen the connection, not to grab her hand as if you're marking territory. Instead, lean in a little closer. Lower your voice slightly. Hold eye contact just a moment longer than usual. Create a brief pause. If she maintains the same energy, if she doesn't pull away, that's escalation handled with awareness. That's how attraction grows naturally. This is how men attract women consistently, not through pickup lines or rehearsed scripts, but through awareness and timing. Masculine energy isn't loud or forceful. It's calm and steady. It doesn't beg for reassurance. It observes the environment and responds with quiet confidence. When you notice that gentle object-caressing gesture, smile lightly and allow your presence to deepen. Maybe touch her hand briefly while making a point quick and natural, then let go. Watch how she reacts. If she mirrors your behavior, if she moves a little closer, if her fingers go back to tracing that slow motion while her body angles toward you, she isn't confused. She's making a choice. And here's a truth many men need to understand. If you consistently ignore these signals, she will adjust. Attraction is dynamic. It grows when it's acknowledged, and it fades when it's left hanging. If her body is leaning forward while you stay frozen in fear, eventually she will direct that energy somewhere else. Not because she's impatient, but because chemistry requires participation. You have to meet the moment. This isn't about pressure. It's about presence. When she communicates this way with her hands, she's showing comfort, curiosity and desire all at once. That combination is rare, and it has value. A high-value man recognizes value and responds to it. He doesn't sit there motionless waiting for a clearer sign. He understands that attraction rewards courage when it's paired with respect. So stay attentive, stay calm, be decisive. If the energy is mutual, if her gestures, her eyes and her posture are all aligned, then create an opportunity for closeness. Move the interaction forward. Maybe it becomes a slightly longer touch. Maybe it's guiding her hand during a shared laugh. Maybe it's slowly closing the distance and watching if she remains comfortable. That's how attraction develops without games. That's how masculine energy functions at its highest level. Remember this. Her hands are often braver than her words. When they begin to speak, don't act like you can't hear them. Don't overthink it. Don't delay forever. Notice the signal and respond with confidence. That's the difference between tension that turns into connection and tension that eventually fades into regret. If you see her fingers, if you notice her fingers slowly running along the rim of her glass, don't just sit there feeling confused. Don't overanalyze it. That moment carries tension. It's attraction, searching for somewhere to land. And if you hesitate for too long, that tension fades, and along with it, your opportunity. A man who understands signals responds with calm confidence. He leans in slightly. He allows the moment to progress naturally. He doesn't freeze in place. So here's the move. The next time you notice something like that, don't doubt yourself. Step into the moment instead of backing away from it. And if you're ready to stop missing obvious signals, drop this in the comments right now. I see the signs and I take action. Like the video, subscribe for more sharp psychological insights. And remember this, attraction rewards the man who moves with certainty. Now consider this. When a woman reaches out and touches your arm during a conversation, understand exactly what that means. She has moved beyond simple politeness. and stepped into intentional space. Physical touch is rarely random. It's deliberate. It requires awareness, and it takes a certain level of courage. Human beings naturally guard their personal space. So when someone willingly crosses that boundary, especially in a relaxed social setting, it usually means something inside them is drawing them closer. If she places her hand gently on your forearm while laughing at your joke, that's not accidental. If she taps your shoulder to emphasize something she's saying, that's not just a habit, it's communication. It's a signal. She's testing the connection. She's observing. She's measuring the moment. Without saying a word, she's asking, "Are you confident enough to receive this?" As philosopher William James once said, "We are like islands in the ocean, separate on the surface, yet connected in the depths." Touch is that deeper connection rising to the surface. Research published in Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin found that light physical contact during interaction increased perceived attractiveness by nearly 40% in both directions. Think about that again, 40%. When she touches you, she isn't just signaling attraction, she's actually strengthening it. She's building chemistry in real time. And this is where many men fail, not because they lack value, but because they hesitate. They start overthinking. They freeze. In a modern world where so much communication happens behind screens and filtered messages, real physical signals have become rare, and because they are rare, they carry real power. Slow your breathing, hold eye contact, lean slightly closer, match her energy with calm confidence. That is strength. That is stoicism in action. The modern world often trains men to doubt themselves. It encourages waiting for perfect certainty before making a move, but that certainty rarely appears. Attraction lives in momentum. It grows through decisive action. When she closes the physical distance between you, she is offering a green light, not a signal to become reckless or aggressive, but an invitation to lead with clarity. Real leadership in romance isn't loud or dramatic. It's subtle. It's about reading the atmosphere, sensing the rhythm of the moment, and responding with awareness rather than reacting impulsively. Ancient Stoic philosophy reminds us that fortune favors a prepared mind. In this situation, preparation means emotional discipline. No desperation, no rushing forward blindly, just calm, measured escalation. If her hand rests on your arm, allow your own touch to linger for a brief moment when you return it. If she laughs and leans closer, gradually reduce the distance between you. Pay attention to her eyes. Notice her smile. Signals begin to stack on top of each other. They form a kind of staircase. Your role is to move upward with composure. A strong, disciplined mind recognizes opportunity without becoming desperate for it. You're not chasing, you're choosing. You're responding to an invitation that she created, and that changes the entire dynamic. Remember the words of Epictetus: make the best use of what lies within your control, and accept the rest as it unfolds. What lies within your control is your courage, your presence, and your willingness to step forward when the moment calls. If you hesitate again and again after clear signals, she won't feel selected. She'll feel uncertain. Attraction cools when confidence disappears, not because she expects perfection, but because energy must be matched with energy. Modern dating often feels confusing, filled with mixed messages, but physical touch is rarely ambiguous. It is one of the clearest signs of comfort and interest. When she reaches out, she's lowering her guard. Respect that. Appreciate it. Rise to meet it. At the same time, don't rush to kiss her the moment she brushes against your sleeve. That's not wisdom. But ignoring several obvious invitations isn't wisdom either. That's fear hiding behind caution. A balanced man, a stoic man, moves with timing. He senses when the conversation softens, when eye contact deepens, and when silence stretches in a warm way instead of an awkward one. That is your window. Lean forward slightly. Lower your voice. Let your intention be felt without forcing it. If she stays, if she smiles, if she doesn't move away, then act with quiet decisiveness, gently, confidently. This isn't about tricks or manipulation. It's about awareness. It's about mastering yourself so completely that when opportunity appears, you're ready for it. Stoicism isn't just theory. It's practiced composure. Ancient Stoic wisdom teaches emotional discipline, and that discipline creates a magnetic presence. A strong mind does not collapse when faced with possibility. It steps forward into it. So the next time her fingers brush your arm and remain there for a moment, don't pretend it meant nothing. Don't ruin the moment with doubt. Stand tall, stay grounded, observe the pattern. Then respond with calm authority. Connection, and even victory in life, doesn't belong to the loudest man in the room. It belongs to the one who sees clearly and moves at the right moment. Be that man. And here's something important. There is a subtle signal that most men completely overlook. Once you learn to recognize it, you will never sit across from a woman the same way again. This signal has a name. It's called the palm flash. It isn't dramatic. It isn't loud. There are no flashing neon signs announcing it, just her hands. Yet this small gesture is one of the most powerful psychological cues hiding in plain sight. When she talks to you and her palms are open, facing upward as she gestures, when her hands rest softly on the table, or when she extends her hand toward you while giving you something, she is communicating far more than her words alone. Open palms signal openness. They show trust. They reveal emotional availability. Closed palms send a completely different message. Hands tucked away, fingers tightened, arms crossed tightly across the body. Those gestures represent guarded energy. They show protection and emotional distance. But open palms? That's the body quietly saying, I feel safe here. In female psychology, safety comes before attraction can truly grow. If she feels guarded, she pulls back. If she feels safe and relaxed, she leans forward. And when a woman's body begins leaning toward you before her mind even catches up, you're watching genuine attraction form in real time. Evolutionary psychologists explain this clearly. Thousands of years ago, showing open palms meant something very simple. I'm not carrying a weapon. It was a signal of peace and trust. That ancient wiring still exists inside us today. So when she's expressive, animated, and her palms remain visible and relaxed, she isn't just talking. On a subconscious level, she's telling you that she feels comfortable enough to drop her defenses. That's not a small detail, and it certainly isn't random. Many men wait for dramatic signs. They look for obvious flirting or bold confirmation. They want attraction spelled out clearly before they respond. But don't wait for fireworks. Watch the hands. Because the body often reveals what the lips are still deciding how to say. These psychological cues aren't about manipulation. They're about observation and awareness. They're about understanding how connection forms through alignment instead of confusion. This is where many men make a mistake. They notice the openness, but they hesitate. They start questioning themselves. Maybe she's just being friendly. Maybe she behaves like this with everyone. Stop overthinking. Stay present. When her palms repeatedly face toward you, when her gestures invite rather than block, when her hands remain in your space instead of pulling away, that's comfort increasing. And comfort is the bridge that leads toward intimacy. Your role is to meet that openness with grounded confidence. Don't rush the moment, but don't freeze either. Balance is everything. If she offers openness and you respond with fear, the energy collapses. If she offers warmth and you answer with cold analysis, the moment quietly fades away. Attraction depends on timing. It depends on small acts of courage. If her body is communicating yes, but you remain neutral for too long, you unintentionally communicate uncertainty, and uncertainty slows momentum. Understand this clearly. Female psychology often moves through emotional rhythm. When she feels safe, she opens up. When she opens up, she expects you to move the interaction forward, not aggressively, not dramatically, but calmly, confidently, with quiet decisiveness. That's how real attraction develops in everyday life. Not through grand speeches, but through matching energy at the right moment. When emotional openness meets quiet leadership, attraction begins to take shape. If she's sitting across from you with her palms open, leaning slightly forward, and maintaining engaged eye contact, she has already lowered one layer of her defenses. That kind of openness is earned. Don't ignore it. Don't pretend you didn't notice. Respond with steady eye contact. Lower the tone of your voice. Slow your movements. Allow closeness to develop naturally, letting the space between you gradually shrink. This is the point where many men make mistakes. Some rush forward too quickly, trying to kiss before the moment is ready. Others hesitate so long that the tension disappears completely. Balance is the key. If her hands remain open while the conversation becomes softer and the emotional atmosphere grows stronger, she isn't closing the door, she's quietly keeping it open. Most of these psychological signals happen beneath conscious awareness. She isn't calculating the angle of her hands or deliberately planning these gestures. She's reacting emotionally. And when emotion lines up with comfort, desire often follows quietly. There is a natural sequence: safety, openness, connection, escalation. If you fail to recognize the openness stage, attraction will always feel unpredictable to you. But it isn't random. It leaves clues. The palm flash is one of the clearest signals because hands are difficult to consciously control. A face can perform, words can disguise feelings, but hands tend to reveal the truth. Watch them when she laughs. Watch them when she emphasizes something she's saying. Notice whether they pull back when you lean slightly closer, or whether they stay visible and relaxed. That reaction tells you almost everything you need to know. Now understand this clearly. This isn't about forcing a moment. It's about recognizing when the moment is already forming. If her palms stay open while you gently close the distance, that means she's comfortable with your proximity. But if you hesitate endlessly, that emotional window eventually closes. Attraction needs movement. You have to respond within the rhythm she creates, not before it, not long after it, but within it. That is emotional intelligence. That is real mastery. Many men study female psychology as if it were a complicated formula. In reality, it's much simpler than that. It's about managing energy, recognizing signals of comfort, and responding naturally in. Don't overanalyze. Don't ask for verbal confirmation for every small step of chemistry. Feel the interaction. Lead gently. When she opens her palms, she is silently saying, "I trust this moment." If you ignore that signal, you teach her to close herself again. But if you respond with confidence and respect, you deepen the connection. These psychological patterns aren't magic tricks. They're natural signals rooted in human behavior, signals many men miss because they're waiting for something louder and more obvious. Learn to recognize subtlety. Learn to move when the energy invites you forward. That's how attraction grows without games. That's how you stop missing opportunities you didn't even realize were there. If she's showing open palms, she isn't just talking, she's opening a door. That gesture carries trust. It shows comfort. It's subconscious attraction, expressing itself louder than words. Don't freeze. Don't overthink. Don't sit there analyzing while the moment slips away. A man who understands signals responds with calm confidence. He leans in slightly. He matches her openness. He steps forward with quiet leadership. Because hesitation kills tension, and tension is what creates the spark. If this opened your eyes, like the video, subscribe for more sharp psychological insights, and drop this in the comments to lock it into your mind. When she opens up, I step up. Now let's talk about the finger graze on your hand. At this point, we're entering a space where she is no longer being extremely subtle. She is signaling with intention. When a woman finds a reason to touch your hand, maybe comparing palm sizes with a playful smile, tracing the lines on your palm like a joking fortune teller, or letting her fingers lightly brush against yours while handing you a glass, she isn't acting randomly. She's choosing closeness. She's testing the connection. She's opening a door and quietly observing whether you have the presence to step through it. Understand this clearly. Hand-to-hand contact is one of the most intimate forms of casual touch that exists. The hands contain a dense network of nerve endings. They're tools of action, strength, protection, and also tenderness. When her fingers brush against yours, both of your nervous systems respond. There's a subtle release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone. She feels that spark, you feel that spark, and most importantly, she knows you feel it too. That's not an accident. That's communication without words. This is where many men hesitate and lose their footing. She builds a tiny bridge between her body and yours, a quiet current of electricity running through the skin. But instead of staying present and allowing the moment to expand, many men instinctively pull their hand away as if the contact itself were dangerous. Don't do that. Don't retreat from the very thing you say you want. When you withdraw too quickly, you unintentionally send a message: uncertainty, discomfort, or fear of intimacy. The moment breaks, the rhythm disappears. She recalibrates. Attraction cools, not because she suddenly changed her mind, but because you didn't meet the moment she created. A high-value man understands timing. He knows attraction often exists in small windows of seconds. He doesn't panic. He doesn't overanalyze. He simply stays present. That is masculine energy at its calmest and most powerful. When she touches your hand, remain grounded. Don't flinch. Don't rush the moment either. Allow the contact to exist naturally. Hold the space for just one heartbeat longer than expected. Maintain eye contact. Let your fingers respond naturally, not aggressively, and not timidly, just present. That single second of steady connection communicates more than 100 clever lines ever could. It shows her that you're comfortable with closeness. It shows her that chemistry doesn't intimidate you. It shows that you can handle intimacy without losing control. And that's what helps attract women consistently. The ability to stay composed when emotional energy rises. Anyone can talk. Very few people can hold tension with ease. You must be the man who can. Understand the psychology here. When she initiates contact with your hand, a disciplined mind recognizes patterns without panic and responds with calm confidence. This is where ancient Stoic wisdom becomes practical rather than theoretical. The Stoics believed that we should act in alignment with nature and reason. Attraction is part of human nature. Trust is part of human nature. When she reveals a vulnerable part of herself, she's communicating something without words. I feel safe with you. And safety is always the foundation of intimacy. Now listen carefully. If you notice this signal but continue to hesitate, if you keep talking without ever moving the moment forward, if you let the opportunity slip by because you're waiting for absolute certainty, you unintentionally communicate the opposite of strength. Strength doesn't mean aggression or pressure. It means decisiveness. There is a difference. Stoicism isn't about being emotionally cold. It's about being centered. It's about seeing reality clearly and responding with calm leadership. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have control over your mind, not over external events. Her signal is outside of you. Your reaction belongs to you. That is what you must master. When her wrists are open toward you repeatedly, when her posture is relaxed, when her body naturally faces in your direction, you lean slightly closer, you soften your voice, you gradually reduce the distance. Maybe you gently touch her hand. Maybe you allow the moment to create space for a kiss instead of waiting for permission written across the sky. This isn't manipulation, it's awareness, it's presence. In the modern world, Many men have been trained to doubt their instincts. They scroll endlessly, analyze texts, and overthink every detail. Meanwhile, attraction happens in real time. It lives in the present moment. If she trusts you enough to show vulnerability and you remain completely passive, she doesn't feel safer. She feels uncertain. She begins to wonder whether you feel the same connection. Confidence reassures people. Calm forward movement reassures people. A disciplined mind doesn't rush recklessly, but it also doesn't retreat. Ancient Stoic teachings remind us that courage is rarely loud. It is steady, measured, and intentional. So when a signal appears, you don't jump impulsively. You don't perform. You respond slowly and directly, with composure. Remember something important. Women rarely open up physically unless they feel emotionally comfortable first. An exposed wrist may seem like a small detail, but symbolically it says, "I feel relaxed here." When you respond to that comfort with grounded action, you strengthen the connection. When you ignore it, the polarity fades. Opportunities rarely present themselves twice in exactly the same way. That's reality. And reality tends to favor the decisive. As Seneca once said, luck happens when preparation meets opportunity. Preparation is your self-control. Opportunity is the trust she shows you. Stoicism becomes real in the moment those two things meet. Train yourself to notice subtle signals. Train yourself to slow your breathing. Stay present and observe without panic. Develop that disciplined mindset through daily habits, through fitness, purpose, and self-respect. When you are centered internally, you don't question every signal endlessly. You notice it. You respond appropriately. You escalate with grace. You lead without force. That is the balance. That is the edge. And let's be direct for a moment. If she repeatedly exposes her wrists toward you and you do nothing, you risk losing momentum. Attraction cools when it isn't reciprocated. Energy fades when it isn't matched. You must meet it, not recklessly, not desperately, but calmly and intentionally. You move a little closer, you hold eye contact. You allow a comfortable silence to stretch between you. Then maybe you take her hand. If she keeps that openness, the moment may naturally lead to a kiss. This isn't pressure, it's alignment. She opened the door, and you walk through it respectfully. This is how a man learns to master moments. It's how he wins internally before he ever wins externally. Ancient Stoic wisdom reminds us that fortune favors the bold. But boldness doesn't mean chaos. It means awareness. It means preparation. It means acting when the timing is right. Develop that disciplined mind. Practice Stoic principles. Improve every area of your life. Because when you can recognize subtle signals of trust and respond with calm confidence, you're no longer guessing, you're leading, and men who lead with composure, clarity, and courage rarely lose opportunities. They create them. Now let's finish this the right way. Attraction has timing. Signals have timing. When a woman opens a window through her gestures, her touch, and her body language, she isn't holding it open forever. She's giving you a moment. Moments reward the man who is present, calm, and decisive. They disappear for the man who freezes. This isn't about recklessness. It isn't about aggression. It's about awareness. If she reaches out, you reach back. If she lingers, you stay with the moment. If the energy between you feels warm and mutual, step forward with confidence. That's how connection grows. That's how chemistry turns into something real. Hesitation might feel safe for a second, but regret lasts far longer. So here is the honest advice. Stop overthinking what your instincts already recognize. When the signals are clear and the energy is mutual, act with calm certainty. Choose her back. That's the difference between the man who spends years wondering what if and the man who creates the moment. Stay sharp, stay grounded, and don't let the quiet sound of a missed opportunity become the soundtrack of your life. I'll see you in the next one.